Hi, this is Stan Ridgway, and you're watching Video Whiplash.
Okay, this is Jim Like, and he's going to do the interview.
Hi, Stan. Pleasure to meet you.
Hi, Jim.
First of all, welcome to Chicago, I guess.
Thanks.
Have you been on the road long?
Well, since the record came out, which was at in the end of April. So since then, yeah.
Long tour planned all through the summer?
Yep. We're going all over America. Probably be everywhere that anybody's going to be.
Okay. Your musical style has been described in the press as film noir. Do you agree with that? Do you necessarily like that assessment?
Well, anytime that a handle gets put on me, I'm like most people. I want to run from it. I just think that good songwriting is usually good storytelling, and storytelling probably in the end gets to be something you see. But no, I'm of two minds about it. I'm like most people. I just don't like to be labeled.
You bring up the point about storytelling. Your songs definitely do tell stories. I noticed that you use the first person a lot, rather than the role of a narrator looking in. Do you feel more comfortable in bringing your characters to life that way?
Well, I usually feel because what I have to say, whatever that there is in there, it's going to work itself out in whatever way I do it. If it was going to be from another person's point of view or from my point of view, and I guess I just feel more stylistically successful for my own enjoyment when I work from another point of view, because I just don't feel, talking from my point of view specifically, that I'm really that important, that there's really that much to say. I could tell you about my day-to-day life and minute upon minute of my ups and downs and whatever, but I'm not a really very good self-confessional songwriter. I'm really more attracted to walking in someone else's shoes and then kind of seeing where that's at.
Is that where a lot of your ideas come from, just from things you see on the street, like someone stacking newspapers, or?
Sometimes, sometimes that happens. But I think most of the time it just comes from a desire to do something. I feel kind of most of the time slightly irritated with what I see or media or anything else like that. And with what I'm doing, I actually get an opportunity. I feel pretty lucky. I get an opportunity to make something or invent something to kind of throw back at it. So that's what I do.
I've noticed since the last Wall of Voodoo record, you've had just the 2 solo albums, and I believe it's 7 years. Have outside factors affected your output, or is that just a pace you feel comfortable with?
Well, actually, it's been 2 solo albums in about 4.5 to 5 years. I work on things long enough to get them right, but I switched labels from one label to the other on this record, and I'm not the kind of person you hear every 5 or 10 minutes on the radio. I don't think I'm ever going to be that, So what I do, I work long enough on it, so I'm confident that I'm putting out something that's a little different.
You have had a top 10 hit in England, I think, with Camouflage. Any theories as to why it did so well over there and not quite as well over here?
Well, I don't know. Camouflage was probably the best kind of hit single to have, because it really wasn't planned or anything, and I almost didn't put it on the record. It just kind of fell out. But I think audiences are really pretty much the same all over. I just think in America, radio at this point is very tight, and station to station it becomes kind of a difficult maneuver, and you have your different kinds of charts and whatever else. And in Europe, they usually have like one radio station, like in England they do, and they play all kinds of things on this one station, and it goes all over the country. So it's different, and I think in some ways, in England at least, it's easier for a band to, get together sometime around Thanksgiving and rehearse their 2 songs, and then put the song out sometime around New Year's, and by March or April they've broken up and everybody's gone solo. That's kind of like what happens there. And in America, bands tend to bake in garages for longer periods of time, and I think that really actually gives them more integrity and more musicality, more confidence in what they're doing too. So it's different in that way, but the audiences tend to be kind of the same all over, you know. There's a kind of a glomming effect with media now.
I did hear KROQ in LA playing Going Southbound, so are there parts of the country that you seem to be more popular, like the West Coast, for example?
Well, it only depends on which radio station is in that town, and how much they want to play it and what kind of competition they have, you know. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of the age of marketing, you know. I imagine if you shoved someone like me or I don't know if it would be like me, but you know, on like, you know, 6 commercials a day and on kiddie television Saturday morning, I'd probably be a billionaire, you know. I mean, it's really just a matter of exposure, but there are certain kinds of rules and things like that that go with American radio that I think right now are kind of playing themselves out. It's pretty tight, you know. Radio station to radio station, I get you know, exposure or played on radio stations that I think are just more adventurous. They're probably more into newer things, and KROQ is one of them.
Speaking of adventurous when it comes to the media, MTV, bring that up for an example. You seem to get a lot of airplay out of the videos for Drive, She Said, and Camouflage. Haven't seen too much of Peg and Pete and Me. Question that I thought, MTV was obviously helpful in breaking Mexican radio. If a video like that came out today, do you think with MTV's changes they would play it?
Well, I don't know, you know. I mean, I'm not in the inner sanctum of MTV. I don't know. I think really pretty much radio tells MTV kind of what's going on now, you know. It's a little bit different than it used to be, sure.
Has Mexican radio, has that song being hit become more of a blessing or a curse to you at this point?
Well, I mean, at one level it's like it's a song I really still enjoy playing. And on another level it can be one's boon and bane, you know. I don't get, anybody who likes that song likes the other things I do too. I don't have an audience that just comes and says, we want to hear Mexican radio and that's it. Which I feel, you know, the audience I have right now, I think they're a great audience, whatever that can be as an abstract audience, you know. I feel them to be very open-minded, feel them to be kind of all age groups. I get like younger people and people that are older than myself, and even a few, you know, bearded people with like, you know, books in their hands or something. So it's not really a problem.
Between The Big Heat and Mosquitos, I noticed you used a couple of different approaches on this record. On The Big Heat, you played a lot of the instruments yourself. On this record, you're using more outside musicians and using different instruments like accordions, horns, and stuff. Can you tell me a little bit about those changes?
Well, I guess I really had the beginning of this record when I had this kind of a daydream one day. I saw myself in a car and I was driving down a muddy, dusty, dirty backwoods road, and I looked at my gas gauge and it was pinned on E. It started to rain and cloud burst and a few lightning bolts hit a few bushes and lit them on fire, and I was driving along and it was just wet everywhere, and the toads and the lizards were all coming out and crawling over the hood of the car. And I saw a signpost up ahead and it read Ridgway, population 8. So I just kind of turned off there looking for, you know, place to bed down, and that was kind of where the album kind of started there. And I wanted to build a place that was kind of familiar but a little peculiar, and along with that went the ability to call up people I knew and just ask them if they wanted to come down and play. That's usually the way it happens. The core band on the record is my band that I travel with, Chapter 11, that is the primary musicians on the record, but we felt, you know, it would be fun to call in other people like Bruce Fowler and Mark Rebo and Steve Berlin. And Van Dyke Parks did some string arrangements on the record. And that was really a gas to work with him, because he was just, you know, it's like talking with some real rock and roll history there. He used to work with Brian Wilson and people like that. Also has a great pair of suspenders. And,
he really, the album starts out great with with Heat Takes a Walk. And I wanted to ask you about that too. That song and Lonely Town, which follows, they have a little bit of that Western feel to it, and that pops up occasionally in the songs you do, you know, right all the way back to Ring of Fire and Hang 'em High, things like that. Do you have a fascination with the West? Do you spend a lot of time out in the desert?
Well, I don't know really, you know, my fascination level switches from day to day and month to month. And, but I was born there, and so I guess it's really just you know, something I know about or I feel comfortable about that I'm writing about, you know. I mean, I guess if I lived in Berlin next to the wall, maybe I'd be writing about, you know, the Cold War or something like this, but those kinds of environments and stuff still attract me because there's an aspect of going out someplace and getting lost, you know, to find yourself, to find out what it is you're doing. I mean, when I write, I usually have to get away from everybody and go out someplace where I'm really just completely by myself and without an idea in my head. And it kind of begins from there, so. You
worked on the soundtrack to Rumblefish with Stuart Copeland on one cut. I believe you started out doing soundtrack work pre-Wall of Voodoo. Is that correct, or you did some things
more like
then?
for movies of ill repute and stuff. So yeah.
Do you enjoy doing soundtrack work? Would you see the possibility of doing more in the future?
Sure. I mean, if it's something that's like interesting, but I tell you, you know, a lot of Hollywood soundtrack work is really just like being a plumber at someone's house, you know. It's not as glamorous or as creatively stimulating as one would think. My greatest stimulation is working with my own group and writing my own songs, because then I'm really the director, I'm the prop man, I'm the casting agent, and I get to yell cut and break whenever I want, and I run the lunch wagon, you know, all that. Working with Hollywood, you know, I mean, a lot of the time, you know, I guess 9 times out of 10, Hollywood is doing some awfully lame stuff, and they look for people that can bring them some sort of, you know, musical kind of stimulation or something like that. But most of the time you just get eaten up, you know. So I get scripts, things come to me and stuff. Most of them I'm not interested in, you know, but some of them come my way. I'll do them. There's been some more, you know, other ones besides Rumblefish that I've done, but I don't know if they've really gotten around as much as Rumblefish.
Any specific plans for after the tour? Are you going to sit down and work on another record right away?
Oh, I think I'll probably, after the tour, I'll probably find someone, and maybe every day I'll just ask them to, you know, stare at me straight in the face and then kick me, and then I'll forgive them, something like that.
Stan, I really appreciate the interview.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot for your time.
You're welcome. All right.
If I could ask you one last thing.